Welcome to Money Wednesday, another episode with powerful women today, championing and empowering women's emotional and financial independence. And we are thrilled to have one of our favorite mentor experts at Powerful Women today, Marlene Doss, who is an attorney and principal at Doss Law. Welcome, Marlene.
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for having me again, Carolina. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. I am so excited to have you back. Every time I speak to you, it's like things that I haven't thought of. You remind me of all the things that I haven't thought of.
Oh
And
no.
and yeah, and all entrepreneurs is the same, like we're so busy, especially now with COVID. Like we're so busy just staying afloat that there's so many things that are so important when starting or expanding or growing a business. And one of them, especially now that we're realizing that, working together is perhaps the better strategy. If you want to go far, build a team kind of thing.
Yes.
So, in the isolation that comes with the pandemic, it is kind of nudging a lot of entrepreneurs into partnerships or collaborations, or finding ways to cover more ground, which is the great, it's a great strategy, and it's one of the core, strategies of Powerful Women today. That being said, I know you are always the voice of caution and the voice of reason in our group. So you brought to us some incredible insights and some points to consider when considering joining forces with another organization or another entrepreneur. So yeah, so we're going to talk today about business breakups, which are happening a lot nowadays. It just seems like every relationship is under stress, and business relationships are no different in that. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you want to get us started?
Sure. Okay, so let's start just at the very beginning to make sure everybody's on the same page and give a little bit of an explanation of the different kinds of businesses. There's probably three that are known to everybody, or at least, will sound familiar. The first is a sole proprietorship, which is when you're on your own and everything you own and owe is solely your responsibility and basically connects with your own personal assets and liabilities. So that's a sole proprietorship. Now, what we're talking about is more when people are working with other people. So there's two ways that you can do that. One is to form a partnership, and that's with at least one other person. It could be more. And the other one is to set up a corporation. So with the partnerships, you can have two different kinds of partners. So there's general partners, which are the ones that would be making the decisions and managing the business and, deciding who else is going to partner in that partnership. And then there's the limited partners, which could be brought in as income partners. So they would
more
contribute
like
and
silent partners.
Yes, something like that. I mean, they could have a dual role, right? Like you can have somebody who's a general partner as well as an income partner. But the income partners are more limited to, you make this sort of an investment, you're going to get this return on the investment as it grows and it develops and the business grows. And corporations are obviously very different from that. In corporations, you would have, you set up the business, you register it, and the corporation under the Income Tax Act is considered a person. So a corporation can file its taxes, a corporation can have employees, a corporation can have different shareholders. So shareholders are how you decide who's going to have what role in the corporation. The commonly referred to as common shareholders would be the ones that manage the business. And then the preferred shareholders would be the ones that would be similar to income partners. Now, again, this is very basic, and there are many different structures depending on the complexity of the relationship in the business. But just on a high level, that would.
And I know you think, and you're saying rightly so, that is fairly basic. But you know what? It's surprising how many people do not understand the nuances is, we all know
Yes.
the terminology. We all know sole proprietor, and we all know joint venture
Yes.
and partner, and
Yes.
all the terminology, right? But it's usually the small print that catches you,
That's right.
every single time. And especially when, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 minutes, most of my career has been in corporate. So the last, 3 years have been talk about an executive MBA, right? And what I've come to realize is what we mentioned a little bit at the beginning, that absolutely, going at it alone can be very, very isolating. And it
Yes.
often ends up being, you end up trading like dollars for hours, right?
That's
Because
right.
you're doing everything yourself. It's
Mhm.
really, the term self-employed, like you basically replaced your job, like you work for
Yes.
yourself, right? One
Yes.
person, one job, one income, kind of. When
Yes.
you start wanting to expand, and when you start wanting to have more resources, be it, like time, or the people that are getting the work done, or dual roles, right? That's
Yes.
oftentimes when partnerships come into play. And
That's right.
I have to tell you, I think it's easier to find the love of your life than it is to find the right business partner. And I think, equally to the degree of success that your personal partner plays in your life, the type of partner that you choose and the type of partnership that you choose can have a huge impact in the success of your enterprise and the profitability of your enterprise. So
Yes, that's
Marlene,
right.
yeah, Marlene and I are, we've been discussing this back and forth because, we always try to bring the most relevant and things that you see the most in your practice.
Mm.
And I think, like we mentioned, with all the stress that everyone's under, there have been a large amount of businesses closing their doors, and a lot of partnerships that are dissolving. And
Mhm.
so we thought we really, we try to make it a bit of a light, topic, as in business breakups, but these are
Mhm.
serious, it's a very serious topic, and it can make a huge difference financially in the long term, right? Have long term effect,
Yes.
financially. So when partnerships begin to run into trouble, right?
Mhm.
What are some of the signs that, are all splits imminent? I guess that would be my first question.
Are all splits imminent?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to answer that question. Um, Not necessarily. I mean, listen,
Mhm.
ideally, when people are entering into these business ventures, they're not hoping that it's going to fail, right?
That's right.
Usually there's some reason that a business is ending. In my experience, there's been various reasons. Sometimes it's with the disability of one of the individuals that's involved.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's related to their personal breakups and relationships breaking down in that sense. It could be retirement. It could
Mhm.
be a disagreement,
Mhm.
or differences in business styles that
Mhm.
maybe they don't realize at the beginning, you know?
Yeah, or even a difference in how people process difficulties, right?
Yes.
For example, the
Yeah.
current pandemic,
Yes.
right? Some
Yes.
some
Of
people
course.
manage it differently, and in the
Yes.
expectation of what someone feels comfortable. Even I know with my partner,
Hmm.
at the very beginning with the isolation and quarantine with the pandemic, as soon
Hmm.
as the building was clear to utilize again our head office,
Hmm.
we talked about it, and we were lucky that we were both on the same page when it came to our tolerance and what we understood
Yes.
was safety measures and what wasn't. But I have
Yes.
seen other partners that one partner is not going anywhere near to the way things were, and the other
Right.
partner is saying, no, this needs to go on, right?
Yes. And, people's circumstances are different as well. With the closing down of schools, with the, illnesses. I mean, if your child sneezes, they can no longer be in school right now until they're free and clear. And it's quite the hardship. So for people that are carrying their own businesses or involved in businesses that they're either partners in or involved with corporations, if their family circumstances don't allow them to have a very workable office at home, if their children have been home, those have been stresses, and
That's
obviously
right.
that does impact the weight that you're able to pull in that business, right?
That's right. And you know what? Even thank you for mentioning that, because some people may have vulnerable people
Mm.
at home, right? Or school age children that, they can't just leave behind. And these are all things that that really are kind of like our unforeseen
Yes.
circumstances that even the best of partnership and shareholder agreement could not
Mhm.
see. But I guess now going forward, now that we know that this is possible, this is
Yes.
definitely something that you would want someone like Marlene to work out the partnership agreement and to work out all the different contingencies and all different things that could happen, so that you have an opportunity to consider how you would handle it.
And that's exactly it. The key to having a good business breakup is to structuring it properly in the first place.
Mhm.
So whether it's a partnership that you're, a handshake that you say, okay, we're going to start a business together, or you've decided to form a corporation and
Mhm.
you have different shareholders. Um, Usually the key to how the process will unfold if and when the businesses have to be dissolved or broken down or somebody wants to leave is how you set them up. And that
Yeah.
includes establishing the proper partnership agreements and shareholder agreements and, bylaws for the corporations. All those things set out the structure. They make it clear, if you have to leave or if you want to leave, what will
It's
happen.
like a business
Do
prenup.
that's exactly it. Yes, that's right. And it's very important to do properly. A handshake is great when you're best friends and you're deciding to start that partnership. But what
Mhm.
if somebody starts to act in a way that's not appropriate or ethical in your eyes or whatever it is, or
Yeah.
you just have a disagreement, or you've each decided that you want to go a different way with the business. So
That's
then what
right.
happens with this partnership that you've both invested in? And a partnership agreement can set out those things. This is when I'll be able to buy you out. This is who gets to use the name, if anybody, if the partnership dissolves. Um, if you are leaving and you're disgruntled and or whatever it is, first, the other partner has the first right to buy your shares or, things like that. Shareholders as
Succession
well.
strategy too. If
Mhm.
something happens to
Yes,
one of the partners
that's right.
that
Yes,
is owning their share, and
that's
they
right.
might not be in alignment to
That's
what
right.
to what the two of you
Mm.
started, right? There's so many, and I know when they usually say, don't make decisions when you're angry or promises when you're happy. And
Yes.
when you're starting, and like you said, when you're starting a joint venture or a relationship or a partnership or a new corporation, however
Mhm.
however long-term commitment you want, because really all those things are different to be in a partnership or a joint venture
Yes.
or a corporation. They have different degrees, different costs, different difficulty in getting in, but also the getting out
The
is
getting
also
out.
have different degrees of difficulty.
That's
um,
right.
yeah. So another sign that Entrepreneur Magazine identified was that the partners begin to disagree on fundamental business decisions.
Yes. And that is obviously a problem. I mean, if you think about it in a marriage or a relationship, if you're disagreeing on the big things,
Mhm.
um, that's very difficult. But you can also include in these agreements or in the shareholder, are you going to have a third party that can step in?
Yeah.
Or, there's different things that you can set up in writing in advance that would say, in the event of a disagreement, in the event that we can't reach agreement on a vote or on a decision, who will
Yeah.
step in and be the voice of reason? Or do
Yeah.
we negotiate it, or do we have some sort of mediator
Mhm.
that gets involved, and either they can bring us to the point where we can reach an agreement, or if we can't, do they have the ultimate vote? And who
Yeah.
is that person going to be? And do we agree on that at this point? So, I mean,
all the things that, like I said, when you're starting out, like I know, I've had
mhm,
both. I've had successful partnerships and successful joint
yes.
ventures. And I've had unsuccessful ones. And
Mhm,
I have had unsuccessful ones that we were still friends after it's all said and done. And I have
that's
had
great.
the ones that is like, you know what, it really ruined the relationship, right?
Mhm,
And these are the things that you're just so excited to get started, and or sometimes there's a great urgency, right, that you just want to
yes,
get going. It's like, okay, you do half, I do half, and all of a sudden you begin to collaborate. In just by the act of collaborating, you're setting tons of precedent, and you're
that's
setting
right.
tons of implied agreements that later on can become a bit difficult to specify what one person understood what that meant and what
True.
the other person understood what that meant.
Yes, it's really important to just honestly to put the brakes on. When you're getting so excited and when you're getting so caught up, you can't lose. It's really important for people to do it properly. I can't emphasize that enough. It'll save so much money, heartache, stress in the event that there is a breakdown. In the business relationship, they happen, and people leave sometimes not for all the wrong, for inamicable because they can't get along or whatever, but it happens. And there's ways that it can be, I mean, sometimes it's very bumpy and sometimes there is those irreparable relationships, but still the dissolution of the business can still go more smoothly
Hmm.
if you've prepared for it properly, right?
And oftentimes people are deterred because of the expense. Like I
Mhm,
remember, having like calling one of my attorneys, and I do have many, like attorneys and accountants are my
mhm,
best friend, and calling one and saying, I need just a simple partnership agreement, and they come back and they're like, oh, it'll be, X dollars, and I remember thinking
mhm.
like, "Ugh." It's like, okay, but
Yes,
trust me, whatever you're going to spend at the beginning is going to be a fraction of what it
that's
could
right.
cost you at the other end if you
Yes.
don't set all of these straight from the beginning.
That's right. Exactly. Knowing it and coming. A lot of these conversations, when you're setting up these businesses, there's checklists that we often use with clients that we can say, okay, have you had these conversations? Have you discussed A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and are you all on the same page and do you agree of how it's going to happen? How is income going to be split? Who's going to make the decisions regarding this matter? Who's going to make the decisions regarding this matter? Do you agree when partners will be brought in? What conversations and timelines for
What
things?
debt consist of?
What debts you are willing to carry? Who's
Yeah.
making decisions about debts? Is it both of you
Mhm.
jointly? Is it not? All those things need to be spoken about. And when the good thing of considering the partnership and the shareholder agreements is people don't often think of what they need to
Mhm.
discuss until somebody else from the outside is able to say, okay, but these are the conversations you need to have. Yes, you have a great idea. Your business will be successful, I'm sure. And I'm sure the relationship is going to last, for the next 20, 30 years. But
Mhm.
even if it does last, who's making all these decisions? Let's avoid some disagreements down the road by having that understanding up front, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. And if Mr. and Mrs. Bezos are, a living, breathing example, is that sometimes when you're starting and, it's all on future potential, right? Like, it's hard to estimate the value of what this could be, right? So you often think like all of this is not necessary because we have nothing. Like we're
Mhm.
starting with nothing, right? But
Yes,
sometimes, especially if you're on the right side of history, at the right time in history, what you're doing, I mean, look how much Powerful Women Today has changed
yeah,
in like we're barely able to keep up right now, right? And
which is great, I
we are doing, and it's because of people like you and
Exciting.
all of our mentor experts, and we're thrilled that we're having a little, squirrel shiny plug is that Marlene's coming to be a regular on our show. Once she's going to have her own track, Women in the Law, and we really need to understand for women entrepreneurs that now that we are taking entrepreneurship to the next level, that is, we have to protect ourselves, and we have to, this is not about thinking sharky, this is about being
Mhm.
smart.
That's
And
right.
I have to tell you, Marlene has not only she a colleague, but she has done professional work with us, and she is unlike many lawyers that I have met. It's an actual conversation. It is, it is easy. It is, when you bring up things that either A, were wrong, or B, we haven't thought of, is done in a very mindful way and very respectful. And that, I think, that is the part that when people think lawyers, accountants, bankers, it's like you're thinking of this, like, kind of like uptight, difficult, painful conversation. But it's
No.
not the case. It's especially with all the mentor experts at Powerful Women today. It's like, you guys are hand selected for a reason, and you guys are amazing. So
Thank
if
you,
anybody
Carolyn. I
needs
appreciate that.
anything,
But it is important,
call
the people.
Marlene.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you do have to pick the right professionals to work with you, and they do have to fit your personalities, and they do have to fit your needs, right? But thank you for saying that. I mean, that has been the goal since day one of my practice, is to change the face of law, and to make it
That's right.
more accessible
Accessible.
and friendly. And frankly, what I always say is, I treat my clients the way I would want to be treated if I walked into a law
Wow.
office, or to somebody
Yeah.
else's office. If I was paying for a service, what value would I want to receive in exchange for that dollar that I'm paying, that hard-earned dollar, right? And whether you're setting up a business or whatever it is that you're doing, you're a person, and you're a person with vested interests and with things that you value, and it's my job to hear what that is, and as you said, to perhaps bring to your attention things that you may not have already given thought to, but mostly to help you sort through that and to reach your goals,
Yes.
and wherever I am meant to be involved in that.
Yeah. So we don't only want to bring, the gloom and doom that's very
Yeah.
newsy, news like, but we want to bring some of the solutions, right? Like we've identified some of the little bit of warning signs, but we also, Marlene has brought to us some, some tips, right? That is not all lost. Just because you're having a disagreement doesn't mean that is all lost. And I know some of them seem like common sense, and it's like, really, this is the best you can give us. Actually, it is often common sense is seldom common. So absolutely, one of the best advice that we can give you, both from the law, and I'll let you speak up on it in a moment, but
Mhm.
from a mindfulness perspective, is that you use that 48-hour rule and never
Mhm.
speak in the moment when you're angry, unless it's going to prevent somebody from getting hurt, right? Unless
Right.
it's absolutely extremely necessary. But most of the time, like 98% of the time, wait 48 hours before you bring up any area of concern.
Mhm. Figure out how you want to say it the way you would want to be receiving it,
Mhm.
and with the purpose of getting your point across, but not in the sense of I need to be heard, right?
Mhm.
In the point of what is the resolution? What is the outcome that I'm hoping for? And
Mhm.
start the conversation that way, right?
And also make sure that what you understood is indeed what transpired,
Yes, that's right.
right? Because
Yes.
sometimes we hear with our filters and conclusions, but that may not
Mhm.
necessarily be what the other person intended, right?
That's right. Yes. Yes, and there's a reason that you went into this business or this venture with that individual or individuals, or decided to become a part of whatever corporation it is, but especially when it's a partnership or something on a smaller scale, where there are, personal feelings and personal investments that are in there. There's a reason that you started them, and you ask yourself, do those reasons still exist?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if those reasons still exist, then there's something worth fighting for, right? Or
Yeah,
not
and
in
it's
the,
just
in the
like
literal
every
sense,
other
but
relationship. And
yes, that's right.
it's the same, you're spending an awful lot of time together, right?
Mhm.
I know with my business partners, like, honestly, like, we try not to think of the time we spend together
Yes,
because it's overwhelming. And
that's right.
And also, to consider accepting professional help, like, like seeing, having your attorney in your team is not always about contracts. It's not always
That's
about
right.
major transactions. It can also be just about having a monthly meeting of the minds, right? Like, where are
Right.
we at? And get into those situations before they become big issues.
Yes. And exactly, that's exactly it. And the professionals are here to help you, right? To avoid some of the pitfalls that we've already seen in the past,
Absolutely. And
but
don't
to set
feel
you up for
bad. Like,
success.
they happen to the best of all
That's right.
businesses, small, from startups to established businesses,
Yes.
right? This is human being human.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly it. I
Yeah, and
agree.
another good thing to do is to revisit your mission and vision statement. And there's many times when I know, and this comes from my human resources background, in making
Hmm.
sure that you have a clear mission and vision statement.
That's
Because
right.
there's times I have to tell you that things are not going the way I want to, or I am exhausted. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you do work a lot, and I'll begin to go into dark little corners, and then I'll look at our vision and mission statement, and it's like, no, this is why we're doing this, right? Or stay strong, this is what the end goal is. And it's super important that you revisit it, and that you make sure that it still resonates with all partners, that
Yes.
still speaks to your values.
And if it doesn't, then perhaps it is time, for somebody to make an exit, but it can be a clean and smooth exit. It doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be, it doesn't have to be vicious if it's planned for properly.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for saying that. Things sometimes come to their natural end.
Hmm.
A friend of mine always said, a season, a reason, or a lifetime.
Hmm.
And you just got to be grateful for the journey that you spent
That's right.
together, and what you learned. And a lot of times, if handled properly, if handled with the utmost respect and mindfulness, it may mean that you continue your business collaboration in a
Hmm.
different way. You know what I mean? It
That's
doesn't
right.
always, just because things change, it doesn't mean that they have to end.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
But
So,
I would say the take home would be
yes.
at inception of your business and of your partnership,
Yeah.
set it up right. If that would, if there was going to be one take home here, I would say set it up right, so
Mhm.
that in the event that something does have to break up, or somebody does have to leave, or somebody, their relationship falls apart and they have to move out of the business, or there's so many different
So
things
many
that can impact
variables.
why you might want to leave a business. But if you set it up right with the proper agreements in place in the beginning, then you can plan for a lot of these. You can say, if this unforeseen circumstance comes up, this is how we're going to handle it, which
Absolutely.
saves a lot because you've already agreed to it. And even if you change your mind of how it should be and shouldn't be done later on, at least there's something in place that says, yes, but this is how we're going to, right?
And
Which,
another thing that I'm thinking, actually, as we're speaking, is that, back to, you're so excited and you're making promises when you're happy. And I
mhm,
find that oftentimes we don't do enough due diligence on the
yes.
other partner,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
There's a lot of things, like, as mundane as a credit, rating, or any pending litigation, or any dissolution with other partners. Like,
yes.
these are all the things that you want to know before. Is no different than your personal relationship. It
Mhm,
can be as costly, it can be as painful, it can be as rewarding.
that's right.
And in working with someone, and I know I keep plugging you, because honestly, it is one of the happiest interactions that I've had with you, and my
Likewise.
the other team of lawyers. I know, is you know like, this is why you're working with a professional. And if somebody's going to take issue or offense at your asking these questions, that itself is a sign
That's right.
of something, right? That
Agreed.
you may not
100%.
be
Yes.
sharing the same values. So,
Yes. So at the
to get
very
a
beginning, you can't even get on the same page with what questions need to be asked and answered, or there's not, transparency and disclosure and openness, then do not proceed. Right? Like, then you're
Absolutely.
already not like-minded in how the business should be entered into and what each of your roles are and what your obligations to one another are.
Mhm.
Agreed, Carolina, for sure.
I agreed.
Mhm.
And we're going to have more conversations about this because, there's so many case studies. Like, I know you're always in part of your mentorship of all the Powerful Women Today entrepreneurs. You're always presenting case studies to us and, some samples of what can happen. And that is,
Mhm.
they're not meant to scare anyone, but they are cautionary tales, right? Let's not make mistakes that can be avoided. Let's stick to
Absolutely.
the ones that we didn't see coming.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed.
Absolutely. If you need to get a hold of Marlene, is info@doslaw.ca, and you're welcome to visit her website at doslaw.ca. And you can always find Marlene within the Powerful Women Today ecosystem. And we are so grateful that you joined us today. There's so much to learn. I know we kind of make a little bit of light on the topic, but trust me, this is a huge, huge
Mhm.
area that doing things right will pay tenfold. So we thank Audivita Studios for the production and the support for our broadcast. And we will see you on Friday with David. Thank you so much, and we will
Thank
take
you,
care.
Carolina.
And
Bye, everyone.
follow guidelines. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if we don't catch you Friday, and stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Bye.